what's up, and welcome to the Weekenders. This is the show where we talk about the biggest football games of the weekend, and we have some big ones coming up this weekend. But first, let's recap what we just saw. We recording this the day after the first round of the college football playoff. Two great games between Michigan and Alabama, and Texas and Washington. The college football playoff delivered this year. I think the four teams, people pretty much, agree that. Well, that's not true. Sorry, let me scratch that from the record, because people did not agree that the four teams were the correct teams. But I think the results on the field were at least good. That both games were competitive, both teams were well matched. It seemed like the college football playoff committee did their job and gave us the best games. And so, let's just kind of like open the floor up to like anything that you were surprised by or impressed by, or what stood out to you about the games yesterday.
Well, I think first and foremost, Lexi, your Wolverines, They got win number one. We need to give kudos to the Wolverines there. What a great win. So
amazing.
I'm Lexi, I'm gonna let you just kick off that one right there.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was never going to be an easy game going into this. It was never going to be a blowout. I was terrified going up against Nick Saban, and it just the resilience of this Michigan team, because throughout the whole game, it's almost like they were giving Alabama this game. There were so many like crucial, critical, like mental mistakes and turnovers, and you're like, the special teams, God knows what, but just the resilience, the never giving up. I knew they had it in them, but just to see it on display, especially down to the wire against, the dynasty of what's known as Nick Saban and the Rolling Tide, it's like, I'm just so impressed. I'm so impressed. I can't. I'm happy. It's amazing. I've lost my voice. Like I barely can talk today, but just shout out to my guys. And at the same time, shout out to Alabama, because that was a hell of a game, and they made some great adjustments in that second half. Milroe really stepped up. From what he faced in that first half as well. So to still come out and win it when we were down, I'm on cloud nine. But it was a great weekend, or a great day of football, great day of matchups across the board. So just so happy.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like Michigan was dead in the water. Like they were rudderless in that second half. Alabama felt like they had complete control. And, that's the difference between this team and the previous two in the college football playoff, is they responded well. They took it right on the chin, and they bounced back and, made the plays that they needed to do to win. That was my concern entering that game, and I thought Alabama would be the ones to make it. And, you got to give credit to the Wolverines. They learned from their mistakes. They learned from their issues in previous playoff matchups, and they got an absolute massive win.
Well, on the show that we previewed when we previewed the college football playoff, on that show we discussed like where would the experience come in for Michigan, because you've been there this is the third year in a row that you were there.
Next.
And now, oh sorry, can you hear me?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, sorry. So on the last show, we talked about like where would the experience come in for Michigan, right? Like, JJ McCarthy being there for the not just JJ McCarthy, but the Michigan team. A lot of the veterans on the team being there for the third time in a row, having the experience of the past 2 years. That was a question we had. Like, all right, with the trials and kind of being through the fire the last couple of years come in handy for this game. And I think that last drive that you saw was the culmination of the experience. Like, they didn't get down, even when the last drive, especially, but even throughout the game, like when Alabama seemed to be controlling things in the second half, like Michigan kept their composure throughout the entire game, even when they kept making so many mistakes on special teams. They kept their composure, and I think those experiences, which we talked about, may have maybe a factor in the game. They were a factor because they didn't panic. They just kept playing their game and they came out with the win. And they looked great on the last play. Everyone talked about how bad of a play call it was. Like I think Nick Saban was right. Like if you look back at the play call was fine. Michigan just out executed Alabama in terms of making sure all the gaps were closed. So Milroe could only run straight up the middle. He couldn't go to the outside, which is what the play was designed for him to do. So, like
that
right.
defensive line, woo.
Yeah, the D line was the difference maker in that game. They completely just punished Jalen Milroe all day long.
5 sacks in the first half. Like,
it was wild. Like I've never seen an Alabama offense be physically dominated like that. That was unreal.
Life's good.
Yeah, it was neat. I was very impressed. I was very, very impressed with that defensive front. And Alabama they've lost. Like, I'm not trying to diminish the win, but the Tide have lost a step just in terms of execution, the little details, the amount of bad snaps. How does Alabama, of all teams, struggle with snaps like that? How can you not get a consistent snap? It's
multiple times throughout the game there was bad ones. Like I think that counted 5. It was like, get your shit together. That should be the easy part.
It's and that's what these recent Alabama teams have struggled with is the small details, the discipline. Too many holds. Not as much in this game. That wasn't as big of an issue, but it's always like these weird little details. When they lose, it's always because of the margins, and that's just never been a thing with Nick Saban teams until now.
I think losing some of the assistants has finally caught up with Alabama. Like Alabama was always able to have Bill O'Brien or Steve Sarkisian, somebody like that as their coordinator on offense. And, we know, those are basically head coaches, being offensive coordinators for Alabama. And so now, not saying like Tommy Reese isn't a good coordinator or anything like that, but I think like not having really high level experienced assistants, and also for whatever reason, that sort of well of talented quarterback that they had, from whenever it was, till recently, like it sort of ran out this year. So I mean, again, there's credit to them because they're still competing in the CFP, and with the 12-team playoff, Alabama's always going to be in the conversation and always going to be a tough team to beat. But yeah, they definitely have, I think, suffered from a lot of things. NIL, assistants leaving, other teams sort of recruiting better in their area. So it's going to be interesting to see what Alabama looks like moving forward. Let's jump to Washington, Texas. That was a good game as well. Sort of the opposite of what we saw with Michigan, Alabama, right? Like Michigan, Alabama was low scoring and defensive. Washington, Texas was like a high offense, lots of scores, back and forth track meet game, kind of what everyone expected it to be. Hence the over under, which was like 58 or something like that. I thought, like, again, Washington showed that you keep doubting him. Texas was favored by, I think, 4.5. And you keep doubting them, and they keep showing people why they're undefeated and why they're in this position.
Yeah, it was just an incredible performance from Washington until the very end. By the way, Kalen DeBoer almost lost that game for Washington. Time management, we can talk about all that, but they won that game just straight up with an awesome offensive game plan. I tweeted during that game, gave me deja vu, very similar in a very similar performance from Michael Penix. He did a lot of the things that Dylan Gabriel did to defeat Washington. A lot of designed runs from a guy who was really known as a runner. I guess lefties give Texas's defense an issue because he was slinging the rock all over the place. Incredible performance by Roma Duze as well. And look, the game was won by, just an excellent offensive performance by Michael Penix. And then Texas lost the game because of the turnover battle. They are putting up, just like in that game against OU in Red River, they're putting up tons of numbers, but it wasn't converting the points because they kept turning the ball over at the worst possible time. And it doomed them in the end. But at the same time, they almost pulled that one out of their butt because I don't know what it is with college football coaches and their refusal to just take a damn knee, because that almost lost him the ball game. I don't know what the hell happened there. Why they decided to run it? Why? I guess if you get hurt, you can't run the clock down. What that feels like a hole in the college football like rules, but I don't know. I have a billion thoughts of this ball game, but credit to Washington. Great game plan, and what a win.
Yeah, it was another great game. I mean, like I said, it's just was really happy that these four teams got to give us a display of it. But just what like Michael Penix Jr. is just incredible. Especially when he's hot. It's like it's really scary to think that we have to go up against that next. But shout out to Texas too. They did have a good run here, but you said that the turnovers, and that kind of they remind me of like Michigan 2 years ago. Coming into the playoffs, like the fresh feeling of like finally being back, winning your conference, getting there, and then just kind of, making silly mistakes. But I think that they'll be back. I think they've got a lot of stuff they're building there. But credit to Washington and just coming out on top when kind of both teams were trying to give it away there at the end. But great game, great day of football.
Texas's offseason is going to be very interesting because you're moving to the SEC. You're coming off of a CFP appearance, so you got a lot to prove, and a Big 12 championship. But you're moving to the SEC, so you have a lot to prove. They have a logjam at quarterback. Quinn Ewers didn't really improve his draft stock. He can still go to the draft if he wants, but probably should go back another year, refine some things, get better. And they also have Arch Manning waiting in the wings, and their backup. They have another backup there as well who was in front of Arch
Malik
Manning.
Murphy transferred to Duke.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have Arch and Quinn kind of like figuring out who's gonna. I mean, somebody's got to go. Next year. So if Quinn doesn't go to the draft, which I don't think he should in this class. So yeah, that'll be an interesting offseason for them. But let's move on to the championship talk. It'll be Monday, 7:30, between obviously Michigan and Washington. Michigan favored by 4.5. Washington, I'm sorry, the over-under is 55.5. This is number one versus number two, undefeated versus undefeated. I think this is a great result for college football to have the top two teams, be 1 and 2, and neither of them are. I mean, whatever. You can hit on the SEC. That's fine. I'm not necessarily doing that, but I think after all the years we've seen where it was Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, and all those teams for years and years and years, like I think it's nice that the teams playing in this game are essentially, a West Coast team and a Midwest team, future Big Ten. Like, I think that's good for America to kind of like pay attention to other parts of the country now and not, because college football is obviously very Southern focused, and so I like this matchup. I think it's good for the sport this year. But anyway, yeah, number one versus number two. Michigan is favored by 4.5. Who has the edge in this game though? Was it the Michigan defense or the other Huskies offense?
I'm gonna, and that's not even just being a homer, but like our pass rush is one of the top. I think we're like top 5 or maybe I don't know what we are, but Texas is like way farther down. So I think our defense, especially coming off how they did against Alabama, I'm not putting any doubt against them of what they can do, what they can accomplish. Even with Michael Penix Jr. being as good as he is, I'm not quite sure that he's faced a pressure like this Michigan defense, especially at the height of what they're at right now. So as good as Washington is and can put up numbers, I'm running with just the stout Michigan defense in this one.
Yeah, I feel like that Texas D line is a little bit slept on. T'Vondre Sweat is just an absolute beast for sure. And Washington handled them very well. That being said, Michigan is a lot deeper defensively when it comes to the secondary. Texas, they thrive by getting to you first. And, if you hold them off, they'll, you can pick them apart. I don't think Michigan quite is that same level. Or what I'm trying to say is they're better than that. They're better than Texas's defense for sure. So I think they're going to have a much tougher issue. But keep in mind, look, Michael Penix beat Michigan at Indiana. So if he can do it with Indiana, who knows? That man loves beating up on the Big Ten. I tell you what. Lexi, your friends in East Lansing know that for damn sure. So
yeah, that was pretty great though to watch. I'm not gonna lie.
I imagine nothing's better than watching a rival get their butt kicked. Which you've gotten to see that quite a bit recently.
I have. It's been a great weekend.
How about Ohio State only scoring 3 on Missouri? What the? I know they didn't have anyone at quarterback, but.
It's like they just got rid of Kyle McCord, and it's like that he wasn't bad. Like he was a really good quarterback and just needed a better offensive line. So we'll see. But yeah, that was pretty pathetic.
They just banished his ass to Syracuse. Like what are we doing here?
I don't think he wanted competition either, though. Which is like, I think he kind of just was running away from that aspect. But we'll see.
Well, speaking of Ohio State, I think like the good thing for Michigan is you faced the best receiver in the country and you didn't let him, destroy you. So you have that thing your hat on, the secondary going up against great receivers. My big question is like, if Michigan can put a lot of pressure on Michael Penix Jr., like I have questions about like his effectiveness compared to like what we saw him do against Texas. And then along the lines of that, like I think Washington's gonna have to focus on trying to, find ways to get Michael Penix out of the pocket and to make some tough throws, because I don't think the time he had against Texas on a lot of those big throws is going to be the same time he has against Michigan. I think Michigan's going to be able to put pressure on him more. I think they're going to be able to do a better job at covering the receivers. I feel like it's going to be a different scenario. I think we're going to see a different game from both sides. I think from the Washington offense, I think it's going to be a lot tougher on them. And from Michigan's defense, I think and with Alabama, you weren't dealing with like as dynamic of a quarterback or weapons facing Alabama as you will facing Washington. So I think it'll be a really interesting test for both teams, because this is if not the top offense in the country. It's strength on strength. It's the best defense versus the best offense, and in the NFL, normally it's the defense that wins those matchups. But when you're dealing with college kids, anything can happen.
100%.
Who is the most important person in the game? I'm not just talking about a player, but you can say a coach, AD, like whoever. The very most important person in this game is who?
I don't even know if I can just put it on like one person. I mean, I guess really I'll just say Blake Corum, because he just carries really the Michigan offense. I know Michigan defense is going to be, pretty important there, but if not him, Michael Penix Jr., I think that's going to be, those two are the deciding factors on each team for offense. So if I had to say that who's going to be the most important, it's going to be those.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, it comes down to those two. Michigan's offense goes as Blake Corum goes. With all due respect to JJ McCarthy, if Corum's not humming, that offense isn't humming. And then Obviously with Washington, if they can control the pace of the game, if they can, avoid turnovers, make the big plays. Man, I don't know. This is a tough one,
You
but
got to
to
name a
me,
person, Bobby.
yeah, okay. I know. I'm gonna go Penix because we know what we're gonna get out of Corum. But if Penix if he can't make the big plays and if he can't keep Michigan off the field, because look, Michigan, they're great at game control. If they can slow this game down to a grind, keep Penix on the bench, then yeah, Michigan's probably going to be national champions. But to me, Michael Penix, when he gets the opportunity to get on that damn field, he's got to be scoring. That offense has to be scoring, and nothing happens without Michael Penix. It really lies on his shoulders. In my opinion, he should have won the Heisman Trophy. He is the best player, and the most valuable player in college football to his team.
Yeah.
So to me, it's Penix. If anyone can beat this well-oiled machine like Michigan, it's going to have to be him. It's going to have to be on his shoulders.
Yeah, totally agree with both those answers. Corum, Penix, I think are going to be the MVP or have the potential to be the MVPs for their respective teams. I'm going to go with a coach or a coordinator. I think Sherrone Moore is probably the most important person in the game. I think because what I didn't like some of the things I saw in the Alabama game, and I think like for the coaching staff of Michigan, but especially Sherrone Moore, like, okay, we'll figure out what Harbaugh is going to do after the season's over. But like, if you're Sherrone Moore, this can't be your audition to be the head coach. This can't be like you trying to improve JJ McCarthy's draft stock or whatever. Like, call if Michigan, what here's my biggest fear. If Michigan gets behind like by 10, especially in the second half, I'm not necessarily confident that they can catch up with Washington. Like that's my opinion. And if you keep giving like Washington opportunities to get on the field and like score points, offenses like that find a way to do it. So if you're Sherrone Moore, like you got to call a game that keeps, like you said, Bob, like you just said, call a game that keeps Michael Penix Jr. on the sideline, and call a game that allows your offense to be efficient and for you guys to score points. Like that's what you have to do. That's what you have to be focused on, not anything else, not the future, not your future, not McCarthy, not anything else. Focus on like how you win this game, because although they did beat Alabama, I think the special teams obviously made a lot of mistakes, but I think offensively, like there were a couple times where they were trying to get a little bit too cute, trying to do a little bit the trick plays and some of that stuff. Like that's great. Like we know you can do it, but for this game, like
stick to what
you
know.
That's not Kyle McCord on the other side of the field. That's a different quarterback. Like you gotta like make sure you do what you need to do to win this game that you're playing right now. And so to me, that's why Sherrone Moore has gotta call it the best game he's ever called on Monday.
And that goes for Washington as well. Like they lost all of the momentum in that game when they started doing like the triple reverse pitch, whatever garbage like they did when they were up. Like I think they were up like 10 or something, about to put the dagger into the Longhorns, and they just messed around. And that's how you get beat in these big games: is you try to get too fancy, you try to go for the jugular, when what you need to do is control the game, control the pace. I'm right there with you, Maxwell. The offensive coordinator who just does the most bread and butter effective stuff, that is the one that will win the game, I think.
So let's just get into our predictions. I think. Ooh, wait, hold on. Oh, there we go. You froze for a second. I'll mark that for Jacob. Okay, so our predictions. I got Michigan. Hold on, let me start that again. All right, so let's get into predictions. I'm taking Michigan to win this game. Again, I think we're going to see a different situation with like Michael Penix Jr. Not that I'm not saying he's not going to play well, but I think like when we talk about a defense like Michigan's, I think that changes the dynamic of what you'll see for what Washington's offense is able to do. And so I'm trusting that Michigan will have been thankful for getting out of Pasadena with the win, um, understanding where they messed up. They're going to be really focused on special teams this week because of the amount of mistakes were just crazy. I think special teams is going to be perfect next week for Michigan. And I think if they call the right game and they run the ball down Washington's throat, I believe Texas. That's one thing that we're able to do really effectively. I'd have to go back and look at the stats on that, but I believe Texas ran for uh,
7 yards per carry, I think.
yeah. Yeah, their top two running backs both ran for about 7 yards per carry. Even Quinn Ewers eight rushes, about 7 yards a carry. So, yeah, of 180 rushing yards. Like Michigan will be able to definitely run the ball down their throat. Play time of possession. Washington dominated time of possession versus Texas. I think that is reversed in this game, and I think Michigan wins. I really believe that from experience to the way they play to coaching to everything, Michigan has the advantage on everything except for receiver and quarterback, and quarterback is a big advantage for Washington to have. But I think all the other sides, there's just too many advantages for Michigan, and so that's why I'm taking them to win.
To me, I think this game's about execution when you get down to the championship week. And just my last impression of both of these teams. Michigan came through big in the clutch when they needed to. They executed. They did exactly what they needed to do to win that game against Alabama. Washington, on the other hand, almost completely blew it with their execution at the end. And to me, it's just, even though Washington won that game, I can't get that bad taste out of my mouth of how they handled the big stage, how they handled what should have been just the easiest win of all time towards the end. And unless they find a way to figure that out, I don't think they're going to win it. And to me, I just think it's time for Michigan. It's their moment. They've, obviously been through trials and tribulations, and have faced it before and lost it. But I feel like they finally have figured it out. So I'm going to go with the Wolverines to pull through on this one. I think we're going to get a great game. I think it's a well balanced game. But ultimately, when it comes down to the fine details, the execution, the playmaking, and the decision making, the advantage is Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. It's right there, and I don't think they screw it up.
Gosh, music to my ears. I'm definitely not giving up on my guys yet. They've had just one hell of a season. Kind of fought through everything they did and have come out and there's just the little tweaks that they needed to make from the Bama game. I just feel like we could have, you know, easily won that game against Alabama had we just not made those little mental mistakes. And I think that they're still focused, like you said, Max, too, even with them messing up, they never lost composure. And so they're going to continue that, and they're going to come out as national champions. And I pray to God for it because I've been waiting a long time for this. And yeah, my guys got it.
All right, let's also kind of predict who will be the MVP of the game. We kind of talked about the most important person already, but we all have Michigan, so I guess we might all agree on the MVP. But I'll go ahead and say Blake Corum kind of has to be the MVP. I think J.J. McCarthy is going to be a factor in being able to make plays in certain moments. I think he did a great job again in the 2-minute offense going down the stretch for them and against Alabama. He made some great throws on third down. That play where they did like the double reverse or whatever. He had to like catch the ball and then throw it. Was really amazing, and probably do not want to see them do that again next week. But yeah, McCarthy's gonna have to make some plays like that. I think for Michigan to be able to be successful, especially if the game is close the whole way. But yeah, give me Corum. I think you run the piss out of the ball and hope he has a great day.
Yeah, it's going to be Corum.
Agreed.
I mean, Texas, like we've talked about, they were able to run the ball very, very well on Washington with a pretty shot backfield. No Jonathan Brooks in that game as he, out for the season and all that. So what's Blake Corum going to do to him? And what's an offense that actually cares about running the ball? Because if you look at the splits, even though they were getting everything they wanted on the ground, they threw the ball way, way more than they ran. And I kind of silly on Sark's end. Michigan's not going to have that split at all. They have a way better running back, and I think they control the time of possession. And I think Blake Corum absolutely feast come Monday.
Yeah, I mean, he's been the MVP of just this entire season, really his entire career at Michigan. So it's like the way he plays and how gritty he is. If he gets to go off, there's no one else you can give that MVP to but him. So
yeah, such a good story. Obviously, wasn't able to be a part of the CFP last year, and to come back and for him to be like so important in these wins for Michigan will be great for him. All right, well that's that. Looking forward to that game. Obviously, super excited for Lexi in this moment, and hoping that we get to celebrate on the next show if she has a voice.
I probably won't. Honest to God, my poor neighbors probably thought like I was like being killed or something because I was screaming, especially towards the end there. I'm like, "What are you doing?" It was awesome.
All right. Well, NFL Week 18 is also happening. A lot of the playoffs have been decided. The scenarios have been decided. There's lots that's been decided, but there's a lot still undecided. So we will talk about that briefly. So just to remind folks, viewers here, with the playoff picture, the AFC looks like the Ravens have clinched their number 1 seed. They'll have a bye. They'll be sitting pretty for a couple weeks after they play the Steelers this weekend. The Chiefs have clinched the playoff spot, but they cannot. They'll be a 3rd seed. They can't go higher or lower than that. So they have stumbled their way into the playoffs with no competition from the AFC West. The Dolphins will make the playoffs, but they are in competition for the AFC East in a game we'll talk about in just a few minutes. The Cleveland Browns also look like they have clinched the playoff spot, and they are going to looks like being that 5th seed. Now we also have the Bills, Jaguars, Colts, Texans, and Steelers all vying for playoff spots with the degrees of difficulty kind of depending on who you ask or like which team you're talking about. But yeah, the only spots decided in the AFC are the Ravens at the 1 seed, the Chiefs at the 3 seed, and the Browns who are locked in the 5 seed. And the AFC East and AFC South still up for grabs. And yeah, on the NFC side, the Niners have clinched the 1 seed. They'll have the bye and everything like that. The Lions are pretty much locked in the 3 seed. We want to talk about the refs costing them the game against the Cowboys. Although Dan Campbell should have taken the extra point, but we can debate that later. But yeah, that's where they are, and they won the division for the first time since 30 years. So congrats to the Lions for that as well. But yeah, the Cowboys are pretty much going to win the NFC East unless something happens and they fall apart. against the Commanders this week, and the Eagles beat the Giants. Um, the Eagles obviously are more likely to be in the fifth seed, but they still have a chance to win the division. The Rams clinch the playoff spot. They'll probably be in the sixth or seventh seed. The Buccaneers have to beat the Panthers to win the NFC South this weekend because they lost to the Saints last weekend and didn't clinch their spot. Speaking of the Saints, they play the Falcons, and the winner of that game could win the division if the Buccaneers lose to Carolina. And the Packers and Seahawks also have chances to make the playoffs. The Seahawks, the highest they can go is a 7th seed, but the Packers could be a 6th or 7th seed depending on how things shake out on Sunday. Okay, so that's the playoff picture in the NFL. The biggest game of the weekend in the NFL is the Bills at the Dolphins, because that game decides the AFC East. Those are two teams that have been kind of hot this year, but there's a chance that with crazy things happening, one of those teams could miss the playoffs entirely. So one team could win the division, and the other team could be watching everything at home. So this is a big game. It's a Sunday night football game. Definitely the biggest game in the NFL, bar none, this weekend. And so let's get into it. The Bills are favored by 3. This game is at Miami. Over under is 49.5. Let's talk about who has the edge again. Is it going to be the Bills' defense or Miami's offense? I think they're going to be without Jalen Waddle, so that's going to affect them big time.
By the way, Max, Miami definitely has clinched a playoff spot, according to
they have. But I guess I didn't specify. The Bills could be out of the playoffs. They haven't clinched their spot, but the Dolphins will at least be in the playoffs. Yeah.
Which is obviously massive for seeding. Miami, I'm sure, would rather stay in South Florida and host a playoff game than have to go somewhere cold, I imagine.
Oh yeah,
100%. For sure. But I mean, it's massive, and I gotta say, for the Bills to be in this position where they could win the AFC East. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we're like, this team is on the verge of getting bumped from the playoffs entirely, and now they might win the damn division. And a pretty solid one at that, with how good the Dolphins have been at times this season. But I don't know. I'm feeling the hot hand right now. The Bills have bounced back in a big way. They look like their old selves, and you feel like it just, if they completely collapsed at the end, that just doesn't feel like that's where they're trending right now.
Yeah, with the Bills right now, like I know I've discounted and kind of counted out Josh Allen, but like you said, they're like looking like themselves again. I mean, they're 10-6. I didn't even think that they would be able to get that that record with how they were playing in the first half of this season. So, a lot's on the line. They want to make the playoffs and to win their division. So, I'm going to give them the edge in this game just because of what they need to do to get it done. So,
yeah, Miami's been on shakier ground as of late. I think I would say like the Bills' defense, I trust a little bit more than Miami's offense. Again, Jalen Waddle kind of being a big factor in. That's a big miss for Miami. Miami offensively, obviously has been dynamic this year. They've had some really big wins, but I think when they play teams with good defenses, like they haven't been able to do as much. Obviously, they got the win over the Cowboys, but they only put up 22 points. Can only put up 19 against the Ravens. Can only put up 14 against the Chiefs when they went to Arrowhead. Only 17 against the Eagles. And these are all teams that have pretty good defenses. So like to me, division game, everything is off. The gloves are off at this point. Everything is on the table with these two teams. Miami has the advantage of it being at home, and they're comfortable. And you would hope the offense is a little bit better. But yeah, I'm gonna have to give the edge to the Bills defense.
And that's the thing about the Dolphins is they're just so like boom or bust. When it's working, they look like they can beat anybody in the league. But when it's not working, they're completely garbage. There's no middle ground. It's either they're on or they're off. And with Waddle out, it feels like you can really key in on Tyreek Hill, limit him from being a major factor in this type of game. And I know Hill's been banged up recently as well. He is a go, obviously, but he's not. Surely can't be at 100% given how much they've been using him. So I don't know. I'm trending Buffalo's D for sure as well, by the way.
Who do you guys trust? Who do you guys trust more, Josh Allen or Tua?
I mean, I can't say that I just full on trust Josh Allen, but like he has, been more on his game recently than I feel like Tua has. So in this situation, I'll go with Josh Allen.
I'm going to go Josh Allen as well. They're locked in. And overall, I just think he's a better player.
Josh Allen is my answer as well for the simple fact that this is a playoff game for Buffalo. So like I mentioned, if they lose this game, they could be out of the playoffs entirely. So if you're the Bills, you're treating this game as a playoff game because you want to host the home game and be possibly the 2 seed, obviously, but also, you want to make the playoffs. And if you're the Bills, like you have such a great opportunity in front of you, to host the 7 seed, and then possibly let's say the Chiefs, are the next opponent. Like you want the Chiefs in Buffalo because you've gone to Arrowhead all these years and not been able to get it done. So I love Josh Allen in this situation because of the experience we know that the Bills have in the playoffs. And Josh Allen, outside of falling to the Chiefs, like he's been able to shine in these kind of like playoff situations where their back is against the wall. And they're back, and if you're the Bills, like their back has been against the wall the last few weeks. And Josh Allen, hasn't been amazing, but like he's been able to do what he needs to do to lead the Dolphins, lead the Bills these last few weeks. So I'm putting my trust in Allen. Our predictions, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I'm taking the Bills. I think Miami is a good team. I think the situations are different. McDermott as the coach, Josh Allen as the quarterback. Again, being in a situation where your back is against the wall, you have to win this game to ensure that you have a playoff spot and get the number 2 seed. Miami's like, I'm sure they want to win. I'm sure they want a home playoff game. But if they lose, they're still in the playoffs. And so I think like mentality-wise, if you're not a team that's used to being in the playoffs, if you're not seasoned, it's so easy to, just rest on your safety net of already clinching a playoff spot. So to me, that's what gives the Bills an edge, in my opinion. And I mentioned this last week a couple shows ago when we were talking about their game against the Cowboys, and I said I have a problem trusting the Dolphins because when they play good teams, with the exception of that Cowboys game, they've lost. They lost to Buffalo earlier this year, lost to the Eagles, lost to the Chiefs, lost to the Ravens last week. They beat up on a lot of bad teams. And so I think that Cowboys game, which they almost lost, that was a good win for them, but that's the outlier, not what's happened more consistently. And what's happened more consistently is when they played a good team, they've lost. So give me Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean you nailed it. Just look at their wins: Chargers, Pats, Broncos, Giants, Panthers, Patriots again, Raiders, like Jets. They've just feasted on a bunch of mid.
Yeah.
And then once they face a good team, they completely just fall apart. That's the Dolphins this year.
Yeah.
And to me, like the proof is in the pudding right there. And we've seen this matchup earlier, even when the Bills weren't looking great, they still steamrolled Miami. That's just kind of who they are right now. They're really, really good at winning a lot of games, but they're not good at winning the big games that count. That's going to be an absolute red flag for the playoffs. And as you said, Max, this is a playoff game.
Wow.
The Bills are hungry. They're going to be at full strength, and I think they take care of the Dolphins here.
Yep, I got the Bills in this one. There's just too much on the line. They're in the zone. They want to be able to make the playoffs. So it's really all it is. They're going to want it more. They're going to play harder. Give me the Bills.
All right. Let's do rapid fire picks. These games sort of have playoff implications. Let me add one more. I think. Sorry, y'all. Let me. All right. Yeah. Rapid fire, real quick, with some games that have playoff implications. Let's start with Steelers at Ravens. Obviously, the Ravens have locked up the 1 seed. So the big debate this week is going to be: should they rest Lamar, the rest of the starters, et cetera, et cetera? I think this is an interesting conversation because you could rest him this week, sure, but you have the bye. So that's a long time. Without playing football, you don't want them to be necessarily rusty. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the strategy is, for this game in particular. But yeah, it does mean something for the Steelers. The Ravens is doesn't mean anything at all, other than maybe a pride win for you. But without knowing sort of who's going to play, I guess I'll take the Steelers, just assuming the Ravens just want to keep everybody healthy. Maybe you play Lamar in the first half and let him sit in the second half, just to keep him from fresh. But the Steelers need this win more. A lot's riding on this for them. I think obviously the Ravens are better, but the Steelers are gonna figure this one out, and try to get their playoff spot.
So
I feel like Tyler. Oh, you got it, Lexi. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, even with, like you said, playing Lamar in the first half, I think even them playing in the first half, they're gonna beat the Steelers. I just have not.
They could. Yeah.
I have not really believed in the Steelers at all this year. I feel like they've came out with some crazy wins and whatnot, but I just think the Ravens are just too hot, and I'm not sure that they're gonna even set him for the second half. I think John might, just keep him in there, maybe at least the halfway through the third quarter, end of the third quarter. But I got the Ravens. They're at home. I'm sure they'd love to spoil anything they could for Pittsburgh as well. So give me Baltimore.
I'm just saying, are we sure Tyler Huntley isn't better than Mitch Trubisky? Like
Mason Rudolph,
especially Mason Rudolph. I'm sorry, they've been rotating through those generic stiffs like no other down in Pittsburgh. But no, like I'm saying, Huntley in this offense is still pretty damn good. I'm gonna trend Baltimore here. Why not? I'm getting major Team of Destiny vibes out of that entire organization this season. So we're gonna ride with Baltimore here. Can't trust the Steelers.
Yeah, 100%. I don't blame you. All right, Texans at Colts. Big game for both teams because the winner of this game could still win the AFC South and have the home playoff game. Could be fun to see CJ Stroud in the playoffs for the Texans after the year they've had. The Colts sort of figuring things out without Anthony Richardson this year could be really cool. If the Jaguars lose, then the winner of this game wins the NFC South. But if the Jaguars win, both of these teams could still have a shot at a playoff spot. So, yes, I will take. I'm taking the Texans. Just have a little bit more trust in them offensively. Both pretty young head coaches. Gardner Minshew is, okay. at quarterback, but I think the Texans just feel a little bit better about what they can do in this game. And yeah, defensively, I think it's probably a wash. Texans been a little bit better this year on defense. So, yeah, give me Houston.
I'm going to take the Texans as well. I think that I like their offense a little bit more. The CJ Stroud back in. I didn't even watch this last weekend, but yeah, he's been great this season. And I think he's going to want to do anything he can to propel his team into possibly getting to the playoffs. So I'm rooting for Texans. Texans, give me them.
Look, for the sake of all of us, we better hope the damn Colts don't get in the playoffs, man. I'm just being honest. We need to see Stroud in the playoffs would be so fun. I feel like anytime you get a kind of a spicy rookie quarterback in there early, you never really know what you're gonna get in the playoffs. I think that would be way more fun than what essentially is a lame duck Colts team, just kind of trying to survive while they wait for Anthony Richardson to come back next season. So I'm gonna go with the Texans.
All right, and the last rapid fire game, Falcons at Saints, sort of similar to Texans Colts, where if the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield somehow shock the world and lose to the Panthers on Sunday, the winner of Falcons Saints could go to the playoffs. Falcons fans drooling for Justin Fields, so you know how down bad they are right now, but they could be a playoff team. If things are right for them. I think I'm going to take the Saints in this one. They really impressed me against the Buccaneers. For some reason, the Saints have always kind of had the Buccaneers number, even in the Brady years. The Saints would whoop up on Tampa Bay. I don't know what secrets that organization has on the Buccaneers, but they've always been able to beat them over the last few years. I don't know why that is, but yeah, I like the Saints kind of finding some confidence after that win against the Buccaneers. Derek Carr, that offense, and the defense really I like better than Atlanta. Give me New Orleans.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Saints here as well. Atlanta's just been so hot and cold this year. But that's really it. Give me the Saints. Sorry.
Saints Falcons, the most underrated rivalry in the NFL. I feel like we don't talk about it enough, but these two teams hate each other. Look, you got a statue outside of the Superdome of one of the most famous punt blocks of all time, and it's a Falcon getting his punt blocked. The famous Steve Gleason block in the first game after Hurricane Katrina. It's at the Dome, massive rivalry. And ultimately, I like the Saints better overall, but the fact that it's at home, we're going all in on the Saints.
Yeah, it's actually funny you said that, Bobby. Falcon Saints is a big rivalry in the NFL. Obviously, the heyday was the Drew Brees teams versus the Matt Ryan teams. That was really fun to be a part of in the NFC South. And as a Panthers fan, when we were hot those years, I loved kind of being spoiler to those teams in those years. But I think the Falcons put out a tweet about how they're big rivals or something like that, or it's the best rivalry in football or something like that. This was a couple weeks ago, and I remember I quote tweeted it, and I was like, "This isn't 2015." That was a big rivalry 7 years ago. Now both teams kind of suck, but yeah, no, it's to them it's for real. So you're not far off from that.
Nobody else cares, but they really do.
Yeah.
It's just it's I don't know. I'm sure North Dakota State, South Dakota State's a massive rivalry, but none of us care. Yeah. But to them, it's everything.
Yeah. All right, let's do lock of the week. We kind of had two lock of the weeks back to back, where we didn't add to the scoreboard, but we did record them. So it was the last two shows. We had some locks. So 2 weeks ago we did. We all lost our locks, which were Cowboys to beat the Dolphins. I had that one. That was an L for me. Bobby had Niners over Ravens. L. Lexi had Cowboys, Dolphins over. That was an L. For this past week with the college football playoff, I had the Michigan Alabama over 44.5. So won that bet, got 2 points, bringing my scoreboard total to 15 for the year. Bobby had Alabama plus 1.5. Michigan won by 7. Obviously, L took an L there. Bobby still at 16, so still 1 point ahead of me. And then Lexi.
You're welcome, Lexi.
Lexi with a big win. Had Washington at 4.5. Bold bet, got rewarded for it, and is the lead dog at 20 points. So got a lot of work to do to catch up here. Hell, since this is the national championship, let's do this. Let's do double points for if you get your lock correct for the national championship, and regular points if you pick the NFL game and you get it right. So with that being said, I'll let you guys think about what your locks are. I'll go ahead and say mine. I'm going for double here and taking Washington plus 4.5. I think Michigan wins the game, like I said in my prediction, but I think this is a smart bet because this covers me both if Washington wins the game and if it's a close game, which I think it definitely has a chance to be close. Like that's not it's not impossible. I think this could be a very close game. Could come down to a field goal or whatever. Some double overtime craziness, but yeah, I like Washington to cover 4.5. That's my lock. I'm going for double points to get a little bit closer to Lexi.
Oh, there you are, Max.
Here's my thing. I do think it'll be a close game as well. And I also think it'll be a bit of a rock fight. Championship games in general always tend to tighten up defensively. Michigan, I think, plays best to that style. I think they'll control the ball a lot. I think they'll stop Penix and a lot more than I think Texas did. And I think overall they make this a bit of a sloppier game. And if they do that, they're going to win. But more than anything, I think this game goes under 55.5. I just don't see. I could just see this game ending in like the 20s, just because I think Michigan's defense is good enough to slow down Penix, and their offense is good enough to control the pace and win the way they want to. So we're gonna go under in that game.
The 4.5 is just a little bit much for me to say like Michigan wins on that, but I'm taking Michigan outright. Because I think it will be close, and that 4.5 is a bit much, but give me Michigan just winning.
All right, so those are the locks. I'm taking Washington plus 4.5. Bobby's taking Michigan, Washington under 55.5. I do like that as well. Bobby and Lexi's taking Michigan to win, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, until then, we'll. Been a great show. We'll see you guys next week, and we'll know who the champion is. Good luck to the Lexi's Wolverines.
Go blue.
We'll see you next time, folks. Peace.
Yeah.